Hello, and welcome to Tuesday's episode of the Literary Lutheran Reads the Book of Concord. Today we are going to finish The Power and Primacy of the Pope. From all of this, it is clear that the Church retains the right to elect and ordain ministers. The impiety and tyranny of bishops cause schism and discord. Therefore, if the bishops are heretics or will not ordain suitable persons, the churches are in duty bound before God, according to divine law, to ordain for themselves pastors and ministers. Even though this is now called an irregularity or schism, it should be known that the godless doctrine and tyranny of bishops is chargeable with it. Paul commands bishops who teach and defend a godless doctrine and godless services should be considered accursed. Galatians chapter 1 verses 7 through 9. We have spoken of ordination, which alone, as Jerome says, distinguish bishops from other elders. There is no need to discuss the other duties of bishops. It is not necessary to speak about confirmation or the consecration of bells, nor other such delusions which are almost the only things they have kept. Something, though, must be said about jurisdiction. Certainly the common jurisdiction of excommunicating those guilty of clear crimes belongs to all pastors, 1 Corinthians chapter 5. The bishops have tyrannically transferred this to themselves alone and have used it for their own gain. It is certain that the officials, as they are called, used an intolerable license. Either because of greed or because of other immoral desires, they tormented people and excommunicated them without any due process of law. What tyranny it is for the officials in the states to have arbitrary power to do this. In what kinds of issues did they abuse this power? Not in punishing true offenses, but in punishing violations of fasts or festivals or other such silly things. They sometimes did punish adulteries, but in this they often harass, abuse, and defame innocent and honorable people. Besides, since adultery is a most grievous offense, certainly no one should be condemned without due process of law. Since bishops have tyrannically transferred this jurisdiction to themselves alone and have basely abused it, there is no need to obey bishops. Since there are just reasons why we do not obey, it is also right to restore this jurisdiction to godly pastors and to make sure that it is legitimately exercised for the reformation of morals and the glory of God. There remains a jurisdiction according to church law, in cases that relate to the church court, as they call it, and especially in cases of marriage. This too the bishops have only by human right, which is not a very old one. According to the Codex and Novella of Justinian, decisions about marriage at that time belonged to the rulers. By divine right, earthly rulers must make these decisions if the bishops are negligent. Church law also concedes this. So for this jurisdiction also, it is not necessary to obey bishops. Since the bishops have framed unjust laws about marriages and observed them in their courts, there is a need to establish other courts. The traditions banning the marriage of those who have a spiritual relationship are unjust. Also unjust is the tradition of forbidding an innocent person to marry after divorce, Matthew chapter 5, verse 32. Also unjust is the law that in general approves all secret and deceitful engagements in violation of parental rights. Also unjust is the law requiring the celibacy of priests. There are also the snares of conscience in their laws. There is no need to recite them all. It is enough to say that there are many unjust laws of the Pope regarding marriage. Because of these, the rulers should establish other courts. So the bishops who are devoted to the Pope defend godless doctrine and godless services. They do not ordain godly teachers, and they aid the cruelty of the Pope. Besides, they have wrestled away the jurisdiction from pastors and exercise it tyrannically for their own profit. Finally, in marriage cases, they observe many unjust laws. So there are enough and necessary reasons why the churches should not recognize these men as bishops. They themselves should remember that riches have been given to bishops as alms for the administration and advantage of the churches. As the rule says, the benefit is given because of the office. Therefore, they cannot, with a good conscience, possess these alms and defraud the church. The church has need of this money to support ministers, aid education, care for the poor, and establish courts, especially for marriage. So great is the variety and extent of marriage controversies that there is need for a special court, for which the endowments of the church are needed. Peter predicted that there would be godless bishops who would abuse the alms of the church for luxury and neglect the ministry. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 13. Therefore, let those who defraud the church know that they will pay God the penalty for this crime. Doctors and preachers who subscribe to the Augsburg Confession and Apology. According to the command of the most illustrious princes and of the orders and states professing the doctrine of the gospel, we have reread the articles of the confession presented to the emperor in the assembly at Augsburg. By God's favor, all the preachers who have been present in this assembly at Smalcald harmoniously declare that they believe and teach in their churches according to the articles of the confession and apology. They also declare that they approve the article about the primacy of the Pope and his power, and the power and jurisdiction of bishops, which was presented to the princes in this assembly at Smalcald. So they subscribe their names. This has been the Literary Lutheran Reads the Book of Concord, and I wish you a blessed day.